We need to talk more about how to run a business, how to get started, like what we can do, because we do need assets and businesses in the hands of Bitcoiners, because it's a different way of thinking. It's like a paradigm shift. There's the old world that's still operating, but we're building a new world and a new way to operate. And we need more people doing that to be the example to the world on what's coming.
Hey, welcome back to Bitcoin is Hard. This is a Choice App production about Bitcoin and personal finance. I'm your host, Brian Harrington. Today we have Bobby Shell on Twitter, and the topic of today is Bitcoin and real estate. We're trying to make this the best Bitcoin and real estate crossover episode of Bitcoin is Hard so far. And Bobby has been doing real estate stuff for a long time, and so he's the perfect guy for it. So we're going to see what we can do today. So Bobby, how are you doing, man?
Doing great, man. I'm pumped to be talking about this with you.
Perfect. So to kind of sum it up for people, where I think the crux of this thing comes from is just comparing, how do you think about cash flowing assets on a Bitcoin standard? And then even broadly past that, how do you think about investments in general on a Bitcoin standard? Like, how do we price investments in a world like on a Bitcoin standard, or personally on a Bitcoin standard, I think is one thing. And for anyone listening that's not necessarily sold on real estate, or real estate isn't their most favorite thing, I would encourage you to stick around, because I do want to we're going to super heavy focus on real estate, but I want it to hit those larger points of how to think about measuring investments, measuring quote unquote up or down of value in other things. So if you're a person who owns a small business, or you own rental properties, or you're just have a large stack of Bitcoin and you're thinking about the future, this is also aimed at you. And Bitcoin is Hard largely is about this. I want to talk about personal finance on a Bitcoin standard. Real estate is a giant part of it. So with all that, Bobby, tell us about your real estate background. Tell us about your company right now, and just start getting into it.
Yeah, so currently I'm the VP of marketing at Voltage. Voltage. Our website is voltage.cloud. We're an infrastructure provider for Bitcoin. And outside of my day job, I build businesses and I work in real estate. So the group I work with is called Growth View Properties. So Growth VUE. And we focus on commercial real estate. And one of the big things I notice in just the Bitcoin circle is when people talk real estate, they always only talk about residential. And, Bitcoiners love to say there's nuance to this and that, but they always love to leave out the nuance of the real estate side. And what's interesting is residential real estate, it operates on comps, meaning you load Zillow, you look at what sold this last week. That's how you're going to likely sell your home, is in that realm. And we saw Zillow have a blow up. They bought a ton of real estate, try to pump the prices up, and then they got left holding the bag. That's the downside of residential, where commercial is unique and valuable. And why I focus on commercial and why I want to hold everyone's attention here today is commercial real estate. When you're over 4 units, when you're at 5+, you're now operating on NOI, which is net operating income. So if you can buy, let's say, a 5-plex, and let's say each door is 150 grand, right? You're in for $750,000. If you can find ways to add value and improve the living experience and increase the rents, your property is now worth more, because it's operating on a net operating income. It's not based on comps. So what's really unique about this and why it's valuable is whenever the real estate crash happened, in 08, 09, when we had the financial crisis, it was due to bad loans. It was due to people, the equity in their home was worth far less, and the banks would even close these loans out if people were making payments. So yes, there's inherent risk there. And we're not here to talk about how you can make residential successful. You can go to Bigger Pockets and learn all about that. But where I find value for Bitcoiners who are quote unquote real estate averse or risk averse, I think commercial real estate offers a very compelling investment thesis, is because of the net operating income component, because it's a business. It's an actual business. And a couple of quick facts I want to mention before we dive into deeper questions are, majority of the apartments in America were built in the 70s and 80s. And if we don't repair them, there's going to be a massive shortage. So that's why you see these, it's called value add investing in the multifamily space. So that's one big component. The other thing is there's a shortage of over 10 million homes. COVID caused a slowdown in home builds, and we have a massive shortage of homes by about 10 million. And we know most apartment complexes, they're going to dilapidate and fall apart unless we fix them. And we have the biggest cohort of home buyers ever, which is our millennial generation. So that's kind of the framework I want to talk within when it comes about when we're really talking about why is real estate worth talking about. But we'll also dig into what real estate is, how it's going to operate on a Bitcoin standard.
Yeah. So, and immediately throwing out the words net income and operating like a business, it immediately takes me to this like new thing that I've been trying to talk about, which is Sats flow. Because as I'm thinking about my own personal finance and I'm thinking about like Bitcoin one savings technology, totally understand. We're rewriting the personal finance advice right now. We're rewriting what it's like to have optimal personal finance strategy right now, like moving into the new future. Like we're living in a new reality. So Bitcoin one savings, totally understand. But then so me as a person, if I'm looking at my job and I produce more than I spend, and so I have a surplus every month. This surplus, I can either save more Bitcoin or I can buy Sats flowing assets, are loosely like the two choices. And I'm trying to analyze this whole thing of like, what is the marginal utility of saving more Bitcoin versus buying a Sats flowing asset that then can create income, and then and like so. If I want to jump all the way there, but like so, this income that a commercial property is generating. Do you think about that income as like in dollars or in Bitcoin? So you could take that, or more broadly, talk about just kind of what changed for you because you were doing commercial real estate before Bitcoin, also, right?
No, I
Like,
was learning. I've been doing digital marketing for the last 10, 12 years, and I've been in sales for like over 25 years. So
cool.
I've always done that. And then I learned about bigger pockets because at my last marketing agency, I had a guy who flew drones for a living and he recorded real estate. And I was like, dude, this isn't all you do. You don't make a ton of money. And he said, Bobby, I'm in syndications, which is real estate syndications, taking down large deals, economies of scale, way bigger returns, government tax incentives. That's how you basically pay zero taxes, is you reinvest into the infrastructure of America, which is apartment complexes and larger buildings. So instead of buying an apartment for 200K, you buy 50 plus of them, 100 of them, and they're like 50, 75,000 a door. And whenever he said that, it clicked. And then 2 to 3 months later, I had a big portfolio of about 500 million in real estate come through, and this organization had me manage the marketing for about 14 apartment complexes. They were underperforming, 80% filled with tenants, get them up to 90 plus percent, 93. And I just learned everything about that. And I started getting into single family because I was just like, hey, I can buy a home, make it a rental, and you might cash flow a few $100 a month, but if you get into larger deals, there's tax incentives where you can write off all the earnings, like you're not taxed on what you're making, and there's a lot less headache. Like there's passive and active investing, just like active managers trade stocks. Passive ETFs allow you to have diversification without having to manage it yourself. So this is really what the richest people in the world do. Like if you look at the top of the Forbes list, tech billionaires, oil companies, CEOs, and then at the bottom, real estate moguls. So yeah, like that's a little bit on my background on that front. And when I think about this, back to your point on Sats flow, the
One
way
one
I'm a
point on bigger pockets. Hold on, one point on bigger pockets, then we'll do that. So completely bigger pockets like inspired me to like own a house, own a rental property. Also, totally great podcast. And what I'm excited about is I want to see one of the reasons why I'm passionate about talking to Bobby and he's passionate about this too is we need to have this Bitcoin like understanding flow into the real estate side too. Like I'm so excited for this like crossover thing to happen because bigger pockets correctly does give out a lot of positive information. For people. So yes, and then there's two parts of real estate, which is the like equity side and like appreciation, and then there's the other side, which is the cash flow or like the income side. So yes, now jump to it. How do you just think about cash flow?
Yeah. And real quick, yeah, there's the equity, but there's also the tax incentives, and you can force appreciation like by adding value. But yeah, how I think about it is right now, because we know, like we see some of this data, like everyone used to make reference to Plan B's model. Obviously, it's not accurate, but we're seeing lengthening cycles. So in my mind, the first thing I'm doing, which, some hardcore Bitcoiners will disagree, is I'm buying some real estate assets. So if I'm ever not here, my wife has some money coming in to help pay bills. But what I do is as soon as I get that cash flow coming in, because it's above and beyond right now, I purchase more Bitcoin with it because I understand, Bitcoin's pristine collateral. Down the road, I want to have as much Bitcoin as possible when it's 500,000, a million, and use it and leverage it to get loans at a lower rate because I'm less of a risk factor than a normal borrower. So that's one component. And ultimately, like I mentioned to you in the tweets before we did this, I am not an underwriter. I do not care to be an underwriter. I don't want to be an expert at Excel. And that's what makes real estate very powerful is you build a team of people and you can get a lot more done. So in my approach, I'm, 20-30% real estate. The rest I save in Bitcoin long term because I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner. I know how to scale businesses. I know how to take down real estate deals with my team. And I want to have Bitcoin to leverage in the future for more businesses and creating cash flow.
Mhm. And how do you think about so then what's your perspective on how you measure the equity side? Like, so when you are gaining the appreciation and forcing the appreciation, how do you measure the equity?
Yeah. I mean, I just measure it in dollars. The ultimate goal I have is I want to do everything I can in dollars to replace the bills I have monthly. So let's just say I have 5,000 in bills monthly. And right now, cash flowing wise from my real estate, let's say I'm making 1,500 a month. There's a $3,500 gap. I don't want to just go all in on real estate and try to fill that gap. I must, end up with more Bitcoin each day as we love to do dollar cost average weekly, monthly, however you're buying it. I view it like that. And I think the wise thing that a lot of people don't really take into consideration is this team component. You don't have to put your own money into real estate deals. There's something called OPM, other people's money, where if you're a hustler, you're going to put in the sweat equity. There's a ton of people on the sidelines with a shit ton of money. Like these real estate syndication deals, they'll send an email blast out that says, hey, we're going to get you 7% cash on cash return, 18% IRR, and an equity multiple of 2, meaning we're going to double your money across the 5 years. So these things fill up in 10 minutes. Like you're going to get beat like as far as allocating money there. So if you can bring the sweat equity and work hard and have a capital partner, you can actually earn cash flow, which immediately if you put it into Strike or use Swan, it is Sats flow. So you actually do not have to just use your W2 income. There's very creative ways to approach it.
Why do you think the capital allocators that are putting dollars into these syndications why do you think they or are they looking at Bitcoin? Like, are they seeing
Yes.
the syndication or Bitcoin as do they see both options and are they starting to kind of create a split between them?
Yes, they 100% do. So, with Growth View, I run a very small podcast where we bring professionals on, and I always tend to bring up Bitcoin because I want to get their perspective. A lot of them, they personally buy it or they want to learn about it. And I had a couple of people that raise capital who have, an investor list of 1,000 people. They're managing 100, 500 million, sometimes a billion in assets. And they say, I want to actually offer Bitcoin mining, but if I do, my current investor list, which knows me for multifamily, which is an incredible way to get very wealthy, they might question my credibility.
Mm,
So they'll even talk to me and say, hey, how can we work on taking down these deals? I need someone like you to educate on why Bitcoin matters, why mining is good, how it gets better returns than properties. So that's one thing. But part
mm,
two, I'm actually investing in private equity Bitcoin mining. There's a company called Tuesday Capital, and they're one of the biggest private miners in the world. Like, just like, there's publicly traded, but they're about to be one of the biggest. They have 4 funds open, and they allow you to invest passively into Bitcoin mining with the same tax incentives as real estate. And a lot of real estate people are starting to put capital into that because they do understand, and it's far less risky than Compass mining, which I know a lot of people have had issues with. But yeah, like Tuesday, they partner with Argo blockchain, or excuse me, like Argo, the mining group. I'd have to
mhm.
go like find their website. You can throw it in the show notes, but they partner to take these deals down. And that's the big thing about Bitcoin mining. Like you brought the example up of, do you buy rentals or do you get into mining? Well, the real estate companies get it. They see how valuable it is, and they have these systems in place where they know how to find low cost energy. They know how to find these buildings. They can negotiate, and they bring that value, and then they partner with Bitcoin miners who are experts at that. And that's the gap in mining. Like I do a lot of work behind the scenes in mining on a real estate side, and the gap right now is these people, they can get all the miners in the world, they lack real estate, they lack
Yep.
affordable power.
Yep. Yep. So off of lacking real estate, like Bitcoiners lacking real estate, miners lacking. That's why the kind of tweets that go out about like real estate is a shitcoin or whatever, like I don't super love that because like because what is your solution then? If they talk about like, well, you still pay property taxes or like it's at risk for government confiscation, you can't pack it up and move it, such and such, such and such. Putting on my like Bitcoin, like Citadel building hat or whatever, and like future freedom fighting building hat, like, okay, so hear you, totally hear you. So your solution is to sell the ground, sell the real estate, like seed it to other people that may or may not like keep the government from like encroaching farther. Like, so that's the solution. That's the solution. Like, and I don't, that doesn't feel like a great solution to me. Like, I think the last 2 years have shown that space, like having space, like this room that I'm in, communicating to you is like affecting my mental health and affecting my ability to like be a positive force on the world. Like, if I'm crammed and don't have my own carved out like physical ground, that like is limiting my ability to like have an impact on the world. And so
Yeah.
that's also kind of where I'm coming at this whole thing of really wanting to understand it is like, no, the ground matters. And we can talk about pros and cons and we can talk about things that are frustrating and risk factors to think about, but like getting
Right.
really to the heart of it, like having landowners for all of the history of the entire world have major influence over the future of that world.
So I think I'm a very rational thinker. Like I don't enjoy diversification. I like concentrated investments, and that's why I concentrate only on real estate because you can control the outcome of real estate. You choose whether or not to enter a deal. Like there's not this overarching hand of the government that literally controls everything. And yes, there's nuance to that. You need the right rate. You need to make sure you're in a growing area. You're not buying in the heart of New York right before COVID, right? Um, but I think the big thing is you're right. Like there's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like you could be one of these like anons on the internet that's like sell everything and buy Bitcoin. And it's just like, yeah, get on zero crowd. How's it going right now? If you're having to spend your Bitcoin, that's why I think it's very important to take a rational approach, get a little bit of both. Because for me, like I live in a minimal home, like in Northern Colorado. I bought it at $420,000, 2016. Who knows what it's worth now? Maybe like 600 with the current market. But what I'm doing now is I'm actually downsizing. I'm moving to the East Coast, to the Charleston area. We're going to sell this house for 600. We've already locked in a home there for 470. Even though rates are maybe 2.5% more, it's only like 6 to 7,000 more a year in payment. So in my mind, the average person doesn't live in their home for more than 5 to 7 years. I'm strategically moving to another area where the price goes down, still have the same size home, great community, and I'm managing that risk myself. But I'm also on the residential side, I see more risk there. On commercial, what I prefaced at the beginning is there's far less risk, there's more control, it's an actual business, and you can find more success there. So that's why I purely focus there. But yeah, people need
What
to aim to own a home. They need to have ownership of something.
the
Like
the other thing so they need to own a home, and then on the commercial side, I talk to meetups all across the country, and I'm like try to host meetups like all like in Southern California. Then what's the number one thing that happens when a new meetup starts? You have to find a location. You have to find a
yep.
restaurant. You have to find a bar. You have to find a whatever. And I get messages all the time that are like, "Hey, are you guys renting like the back room at the like bars or whatever? Like, how are you paying for that? What are you doing? Like, is the owner taking Bitcoin? How'd you guys talk to him? Blah 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 blah." Want to know what all those questions like harness on? The
Mm,
fact that not enough Bitcoiners own restaurants and bars. All
yeah.
those questions DMing from all across the country are because not enough Bitcoiners own physical ground and own physical cash flowing businesses. And that's beginning to super bother me.
And
Like,
you know
I
what?
want Bitcoiners to like have influence. We have to have space to push out like this positive thing.
Yeah. No, I agree. And before I joined Voltage, I just quit my job. I was like, I'm going to work in Bitcoin. And in the meantime, I had to do something. And I started a digital marketing agency. I'm the co-founder. My CEO, Alex Wells, he manages the day to day. But we have a team of 8 people, and we're trying to manage digital marketing for small businesses. And I would love to serve more Bitcoiners. And the thing I know there's a shortage of, and where I'm trying to like actually step out of my box and bring value. I'm too busy like managing my businesses, not educating people. I'm trying to like talk more about businesses acquisition because I've been growing and scaling them for a decade. Like my clients used to say, Bobby, you made me a millionaire. Why don't you start your own business? You're settling for like 200K a year. And I was just like, you're right. But now I'm finally building systems and processes and businesses where I don't have to do the day to day. That's giving myself a job. I am trying to run companies. I'm trying to run organizations. I'm trying to build teams and systems that create the outcome for my life. And I think that's a point where we need more Bitcoiners to talk about that. Like I really respect Corey Clifstein from Swan because he's scaled many businesses. Like he knows how to do it. And I think guys like him and people like you, people like me, we need to talk more about how to run a business, how to get started, like what we can do, because we do need assets and businesses in the hands of Bitcoiners because it's a different way of thinking. You know, it's like a paradigm shift. There's the old world that's still operating, but we're building a new world and a new way to operate. And we need more people doing that to be the example to the
Yeah.
world on what's
Yeah.
coming.
No, fully agree. Shout out to Cody Sanchez also, who's like parroting this, and she goes on Pomp a lot and talks about it. I'd love to see her like continuing to cross over with Bitcoin more and spreading what she knows also.
Yeah.
So on this thing, so here's a classic point that I see brought up about real estate, and I think it also also applies to owning a small business. How so cash flow being measured in dollars or sats, pretty decently easy understand. We pretty much understand that. So like if the business or whatever entity is making money, you can like funnel it into Bitcoin, whether it's being direct deposited Bitcoin or you're buying Bitcoin with it. Cash flow leading to sats, totally get that. How do you measure? I think people that are investing in Bitcoin, and so the non-diversification thing, completely agree with that also. Like really being focused on what you're doing. So if Bitcoin is your like main rock thing and you're stacking up more and more Bitcoin every time, it's like spending money on the down payment of a real estate or of a small business where then we're tracking that down payment. This happens mentally, I'm pretty to Bitcoiners. The down payment gets tracked mentally in Bitcoin over time, and you're
Yeah.
seeing that down payment go down. So the $65,000 down payment on a house or $100,000 down payment on a house or on a small business or whatever, you own or finance a pizza restaurant and you upfront the 200K. Like, let's talk about down payments and how to like how much cash flow does the opportunity have to have in order to offset the equity, like the equity going down in Bitcoin terms? How do you tackle that?
Yeah, so I bought a bunch of Nintendo games, a video game collection in 2015 and 16, and I look back on it and I'm like, man, if I had bought Bitcoin, then. But I started in Bitcoin in 2017. And one funny thing, I just want to mention this because you brought up Cody Sanchez. I talked to a lot of like business real estate agents, and most of them, when I talked to them, they said Cody Sanchez makes it seem so easy, and people don't understand how hard it is. That we get so many shit leads. Like we used to get quality leads. Now 90% of them are trash because it's like the hype thing to make 10 grand a month passively with a business. So do your research. Don't trust these people on the internet. It definitely is easy, but they're going to sell you a $5,000 course and teach you. So, but yeah, you can make a ton of money legacy wealth managing a business. But you brought up down payments of like 65,000 and how you measure it. Really what you want to try to do, like we know Bitcoin, we say like 200% CAGR back to year one. If you look 2 to 3 years further, right now it's much lower, but I remember when we were in the 50 to 60K range, it was like 70% CAGR. You can actually make 40,
Tell people what that
50.
means. So
Yeah.
compound annual growth rate.
Yeah. Compound annual growth rate is just like from the initial capital, like the return that you're getting annually from your investment. So in real estate, we say cash on cash. Like if you put 100 grand into something and you make 50% cash on cash, that means you made 50,000 in that first year. And what's really unique about small businesses compared to real estate, so let's talk about this for people, is if you don't want to, like as a high income earner, if you put 50 grand into a real estate deal, you might, cash flow 300-400 a month depending on the percent return they're getting you. You get most of the return on the exit of the asset once it's sold. That's where you get the lion's share of your money. So you have to make a conscious decision. Do I want to build cash flow in these smaller terms, which it's really makes more sense if you're allocating $200,000, $500,000. But if you're just a normal person, it's like, hey, I've got 10 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand, and that's all you have. And that's the money you need to best leverage for the next, 5 to 10 years to get your baseline going. It's actually wiser to build or acquire a small businesses. And acquisition is much easier than building one from scratch. And you will typically get higher returns, versus a couple of $100 cash flow a month. You can get thousands in cash flow monthly. So, it, there's tons you could dig into there on these rabbit holes, but ultimately you just need to ask yourself, are you a business owner? Do you like managing people? Are you good at managing people? Do you know how to manage personalities? Or are you the type of person that just you know wants to work a job and you're not the type to manage people?
So do you think so what's your answer then? Just like is it so it's okay to make an investment that cash flows even though the like conversion rate of the down payment is going down in sats?
Yeah. I mean, I think good business owners can make more on their business than actual Bitcoin. It's like, are you going to get one employee, or are you going to scale like over the next 5 to 10 years where you have more employees, way more money coming in, and you're going to buy more Bitcoin long term? Plus, you introduce tax incentives and all this. There's way more detail than just like, hey, now I'm buying less sats in the future. There's also like, are you actually business savvy? Do you know how to run a business? Do you know how to leverage the tax code? Like, so I'm of the camp, I bet on myself. I feel like putting all this money into Bitcoin personally was a mistake because I get entrepreneurship. I know how to grow businesses. I could have 10 times the Bitcoin stack, but I kind of fell into this rabbit hole. People were just like, you need to get as much as possible. And I'm going to hold it forever. And I'm glad I have that stack because I'll leverage it in 5 to 10 years. But if you understand business, you're an entrepreneur and you've got that fire in your gut and you know you can be more successful than other people, 10 out of 10 times build your business.
Hmm. So what do you think about so you operate on the future that Bitcoin is pristine collateral and what's your perspective on like circular economy stuff? Like do you think small business owners do you think it's like if
Yeah.
you do you think small business owners should run parallel like Bitcoin payment processors and or no?
I totally think they should. And I work with Oshi, with Michael. I know you know him. I'm an advisor for his company because I know small businesses, and that's what I've worked in forever. And everyone I talk to, just outside of kind of like my Twitter circle, like these like enterprise, like Bitcoin people, like on LinkedIn and stuff, everyone brings up Oshi, and everyone says I am bullish on that. And I think we're really starting to see where businesses have optionality, where they can just say, hey, we accept Bitcoin. I'm not going to put it on my balance sheet, and good for you, but you're willing to accept it. And we're having like these credit card rewards, the fold rewards. Like, you have ways you can earn Bitcoin, and people will spend it. I think there's going to be I made the joke the other day, hodling Bitcoin's like semen retention. Eventually everyone has to spend their Bitcoin, and I really think that once these tools are there where businesses can say, we want to accept it, we don't want to hold it, and they can just flip that switch on and off, or only keep 1% in Bitcoin. I think businesses would be very open to that, and it would become commonplace. And what Ross
Yep.
Stevens is doing, getting people holding it in their bank, it's becoming
Yep.
very common, and I think it will
Yep.
happen. And as soon as that's introduced, it's going to lead to a lot of really good, just like shifts in thinking. I think just in the average consumer's mind.
So totally agree. And that's part of the reason why I think so I've been having doing this experiment of like measuring my like personal net worth like in dollars and then also in Bitcoin. And so like converting it and like showing a Bitcoin balance. And it's super interesting watching like the dollar value of net worth go up and down over time and the Bitcoin value go up and down over time. And that's what's leading to this question of the like, is it okay to have a declining like Bitcoin balance? Because as like Bitcoin continues to like dominate and continue to like bring in more and more stuff, like in theory, like your Bitcoin net worth like will go down over time. And so it's in same thing with a piece of real estate, like the equity measured in sats will go down over time, or in a business, the equity in your business measured in sats will go down over time. But kind of what I think I'm kind of like beginning to believe is that if like but there's going to be a point where the sats flow kind of causes the like decline measured in sats to kind of even off, like it will, and then equity in things will actually kind of go like flat like flatten, whereas like current on a fiat investing, we're very used to our appreciation ripping in USD and our cash flow stair stepping in USD. And so that's very nice and clean and that's pretty. And we like watching that. And that's easy to open the slide deck and show up and to the right, up and to the right. It's definitely a tougher story to explain. Hey, we're living in transitionary times. There's a monetary transition from fiat over to Bitcoin. And here's the way it impacts the equity of an investment. And here's the way it impacts the cash flow of an investment. 100% a harder story to tell.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's a shift I think everyone goes through. And for me, like I said, I used to work a high paying W2. I would buy, like, we turned my wife's house into a rental. I bought another cheap rental back home near family because I wanted to own real estate, learn the process. And I kept buying Bitcoin, and I see how volatile the price is. And I don't mind it because, like, my goal is I just want to own more Bitcoin. But I also see that there's a very rational and compelling reason to take my money and build something of my own, and build systems and processes which allow me to hire the right people and empower them to just be incredible at what they do, and I don't have to do it all day. And
Yeah.
if you can do that multiple times over and use leverage, there's really creative ways to like get financing now. Like there's a company called Pipe where you integrate your bank, your QuickBooks, and they look at how much cash do you have in the bank, what's your P&L, are you churning clients, and you can get rates right now as low as 3%. Like you start at
Mm.
6 to 7, and then once you've proven yourself, these institutions will give you loans at 3% based on the success of your business. And if you can get access to lines of capital like that, it's like one good, sound business investment can translate into 4, 5, 6, 7 businesses, and you're absolutely destroying your versus just buying and holding Bitcoin and being like, hey, I hope this does what I want it to do. So I
Yeah.
prefer having more control and betting on myself, but you got to buy Bitcoin and hold it, you
Yeah.
know?
Perfect, dude. All right. So we just had the 30-minute mark. I'm going to rotate us to our final two questions. So, final two questions of Bitcoin is hard is I'm going to hit you with explain this tweet. Okay. So, we're going to throw this up on the screen. It's your glad you got on zero, bro tweet. So, yeah, explain this one for us. Hit it.
Yeah. I just remember at 55, 60K, there's like a bunch of people on Twitter saying, get on zero. The most compelling and smart thing to do is just put all your money into Bitcoin right now. And it's just kind of like, well, look what happens. You're at kind of a local top. It makes absolutely no sense. You're better dollar cost averaging. If it goes down, you get in lower. But if you go in all at the top at a recent high when it's just, you get it. It's just like, yeah, those guys are kind of crazy, but they're their own unique bunch. They're not going to listen to this and agree. They're just like, you know, I just want people to
No,
buy as much Bitcoin as possible.
dude, hell yeah. No, and so look, I love the get on zero guys, and that's why I love this tweet and I want to talk about it because I actually believe there's a more giant crossover between everything you just said about cash flow and real estate and owning businesses and between get on zero. Because I think like having Bitcoin as your base currency like is betting on yourself. And I also believe that like in the same way that making investments and understanding cash flow is like playing optimally, I think people that use Bitcoin as their base currency are playing optimally. And then you talk about tax loss harvesting and this whole thing. So the reason why I use this for the explain this tweet today is I believe there's a giant crossover between everything that Bobby talked about cash flow actually and these get on zero guys. So that's the reason. Okay, second question that we end every show on, Bobby. What is a Bitcoin product or service that doesn't exist yet that you would use?
Yeah. So I shoot video at home of my son, make family videos, and then kind of mash them up on a family YouTube. And it led me to this idea. And I know Wavelake has like lightning music stuff, but you think about it, if you want to license a Taylor Swift song, you might have to pay $500,000, right? A Beatles song, 1 million. Well, what if there was a way where I could, through YouTube, license a famous song, but I only pay for who watches it? So, what's one impression of a Taylor Swift song worth? You know, what's
Right.
one
Spot. Yeah.
impression of a Beatles one worth? And I
Yeah.
can deposit that money and be able to use it on there without them ripping my video down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that could be really compelling because what this does is it really gives like new content creators, new movie makers, people a chance to use these these songs or whatever,
Yep.
and just pay like per watch. And if their shit goes
Wow.
viral and they make money on it, great, they pay that scaling fee upward. But I
Yeah.
think that would be really cool. And that's just like an interesting thing you could do with intellectual property to give
Yep.
kind of like lower level people a chance to really tell a better story and
Yeah.
use it. And I think Lightning empowers that. And I know there's a lot of digital rights management stuff that Bitcoiners disagree with, like all information should be free and open. So it crosses into both, but I'm just speaking from my heart. Like whenever I made a video of my son, I wanted to use a popular song. I put it on there. 2 days later, YouTube ripped it down. So I had to use like an unpopular song, you know?
Right. Dude, no, I love that idea. Shout out to Chad Welch is building a thing called Satbox TV. Got to show you a demo of that because it's there. It's moving there. Love it. Bobby, give us like any final thoughts on just Bitcoin real estate crossover and how we can continue this conversation, and then tell people where to find you.
Yeah. I think on the get on zero thing, I wanted to share one other thing. It's like, I'm not a toxic maximalist, but I appreciate the shit out of them because they hold people honest and true. I'm not into get on zero, but we need these people that are on the fringes to like really advance just the idea. So I don't want it to come across like these guys are not smart. Like, we need everyone to have their own unique view, just like me and you were like, hey, real estate's not a shit
Yes.
coin, and here's why.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the people on the fringe. I know I'm kind of on the fringe on my friend group, even though we're kind of talking about the approach here. But yeah, I guess if you want to connect with me, I'm on Twitter at like the iPhone Bobby Shell, BOBBYSHELL. I'm on LinkedIn too. I'm trying to orange pill on LinkedIn and
TikTok.
yeah, and TikTok. Yeah, man, I'm learning TikTok. I got the ring light and all that now. So
Perfect, dude. And then where can people find Growth View too?
Yeah, so the website is The Growth View. Let me just see here. I'll chat it to you guys. You can throw it in the show notes. But yeah, this is thegrowthview.com and it's VUE.
Perfect. And is that where people can find your podcast also and hear a little bit more about real estate Bitcoin crossover?
Yeah, exactly. I try to always, we talk about just commercial real estate and just everything about that, but I typically will try to bring up Bitcoin to people or drop it in there and just get people's insights. And I'm hoping over time, we do see a lot more of these folks invest in Bitcoin. And I think we're already seeing it, like I mentioned with Tuesday Capital, but yeah, I'm with you there. We're going to see a lot of these real estate people start saying, holy crap, mining is way more profitable. Let's do this.
Yep. Love it, man. Thanks so much for hanging out today. Hey all, this is Brian. You can reach me on Twitter at Brain Harrington. Shoot me a DM with any feedback from today's episode. This has been a Choice App production. Bitcoin is becoming centric to personal finance, and we want to help you learn how to better engage with Bitcoin financial services. None of this is financial advice and is for education and entertainment only.